Hi, I'm actor Ian Champion, and welcome to History of Horror Cinema, my personal podcast tour of the good, bad, and the ugly of horror movie history. If you like what you hear, please don't forget to hit subscribe. Val Lewton, his life and career. In 1942, RKO Studios was in trouble. They were losing money every month, and on the edge of receivership by June, their president George J. Schaefer was forced to resign. His replacement, Charles Kerner, would be a savior who managed a truly remarkable turnaround in the company's fortunes. His famous mission statement declared, "Showmanship in place of genius," signing the death certificate for worthy artistic ventures that were not geared directly to commercial success. A drastic swathe was cut through existing staff, such as long-serving studio manager Sid Rogel and many producers. Even Orson Welles, the golden boy auteur behind 1941's Citizen Kane, was dropped. Despite enormous critical praise, Welles's masterpiece had failed at the box office due to distribution problems caused by the all-powerful media baron William Randolph Hearst, whom it clearly satirized. The last straw for his employers was the young writer-director's follow-up, The Magnificent Ambersons, in 1942, which was deemed so uncommercial that RKO took it away from Welles and re-edited it, not even permitting him to strike a print of his cut for posterity. Future decades would triumphantly resurrect Citizen Kane and mourn for his lost Ambersons vision, but in 1942 there was no room in the tough new regime for anything that could not translate into profitable mass entertainment. To stave off the studio's imminent demise, Kerner needed a talented producer who could create no-nonsense packages of surefire commercial hits. He was about to get a lot more than he bargained for. Val Lewton was born Vladimir Ivanovich Leventon in Yalta, Russia, on May 7, 1904. Along with his sister, they emigrated with their mother Nina after her failed marriage to Berlin and then America in 1909, settling in New York. Vladimir's name was Americanized to Val Lewton as part of the family's assimilation into their new homeland. They were fortunate to already have a Hollywood connection. Val's aunt was silent screen star Alla Nazimova, who found Nina a story reader's job at major studio MGM. Already, the young Val was enjoying the powerful influence of strong women in his life. This would be reflected in the female protagonists around which he would base many of his best films. Val inherited his mother's literary streak. Though as a 16-year-old he lost his reporter job at the Darien Stamford Review over a fabricated story involving kosher chickens in the city. This error of judgment didn't stop his writing ambitions, nor his taste for fantasy, which would crucially gain him much more positive attention. After journalism studies at Columbia University, he had 18 books published, many in the disparagingly named pulp field. The most notable was No Bed of Her Own in 1932, which Paramount bought and partly adapted for that year's Clark Gable and Carole Lombard movie No Man of Her Own. Lewton was already working in the film business when his novel struck gold. Like his mother, he was employed by MGM, in his case to convert their hit films into novelizations for newspaper serialization. No Bed of Her Own's success gave him the confidence to quit his job and turn full-time novelist, but his next 3 books flopped in comparison. Luck and family connection rescued him once again when Nina was asked by her boss, renowned producer David O. Selznick, to urgently source writers of genuine Russian extraction to work on the script of his abortive Taras Bulba. Selznick was famous not only for his extreme demands, but for an unbending pursuit of authenticity in any project he undertook. His meeting with Lewton would lead to a hugely inspirational apprenticeship for the young writer, learning much from his mentor aside from a passion for veracity that would distinguish his later choices as a filmmaker. Across 8 years, Lewton served under Selznick in multiple roles, gaining industry experience as his assistant, studio publicist, and story editor. It was while working on A Tale of Two Cities in 1935 that Lewton's other key relationship was forged with second unit director Jacques Tourneur. Together, from page to screen, they realized the critically acclaimed revolutionary scenes of the storming of the Bastille. Typically, Selznick had hired Tourneur based on his French ancestry to direct these sequences. But it was the Frenchman's real talent that went on to make his name as a director in partnership with Val Lewton. Jacques Tourneur was born in the same year as Lewton, and similarly emigrated to America with his father Maurice Tourneur in 1913. They headed straight to what was the original Hollywood in Fort Lee, New Jersey. Maurice was an established film director for the Eclair Company of Paris. Keen to expand into the lucrative American market, his bosses sent him to manage their U.S. studio after its original state-of-the-art complex burned down in 1914, taking all their stored film negatives with it. Eclair American struck a deal to distribute their short films and then features with Carl Laemmle's Universal Film Manufacturing Company, which later became Universal Studios. By 1915, Tourneur Sr. had allied himself with World Film on the same lot, a move that linked up the family with that of Louis J. Selznick, father to David, who began his feature-producing dynasty here. Maurice Tourneur passed on to his son a strong belief that the star system in Hollywood was wrong-headed and that it limited a story's focus unrealistically. This expansive view would influence Jacques to a degree that some of his film's most interesting characters are their small supporting parts. Before his own employment by David O. Selznick on A Tale of Two Cities, Jacques worked his way up the business ladder for his father, via script editing into short film direction, developing his talents behind the camera. Before Lewton and Tourneur collaborated again, Lewton was involved in the gargantuan labor of love that became Selznick's Gone with the Wind in 1939. He famously tried to persuade Selznick that Margaret Mitchell's book was unfilmable. Yet Lewton himself directed the memorable pre-intermission scene, a stunningly cinematic single take where the camera gradually pulls back to reveal Scarlett among literally hundreds of wounded soldiers at Atlanta Depot. As for how Lewton came to RKO, one story told by film historian Steve Haberman in the TCM documentary Val Lewton, The Man in the Shadows, dealt with potential carnage of a different kind. Newly installed President Kerner allegedly saw him at a party and, inquiring about him, was told that Lewton wrote those horrible pulp novels. Kerner misinterpreted his background as a pipeline to the horror genre he thought could save the studio, and immediately suggested recruiting him. Even if the anecdote is fiction, Kerner was actually gunning for a slice of the money-spinning horror renaissance enjoyed by Universal. The only problem was that, unlike their rival, RKO did not own lucrative copyrights on any recognizable creatures for their features. The only solution was to invent their own, and this is where the studio needed to bring in a unique visionary to create new crowd-pleasing terror for wartime audiences with all the quality of their wealthier competitors, but at a low cost. In 1942, Val Lewton signed to RKO to undertake the opportunity of a lifetime, his first ever position as a film producer. A powerful, creative role whose pressures might have been daunting enough without the imminent creditors at their door. There was no time to be gently eased into the new role. Lewton, however, had spent 8 years learning from a master. Selznick not only taught him well, he was generous enough to broker the deal with the studio that had tempted away his own young protege, an act that only increased Lewton's gratitude to him. Thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, please don't forget to hit subscribe.